Welcome to the Stack of Stats podcast. I am Pam Maldonado, joined by my college football partner in crime, Harry Gagnon of the Against All Odds podcast with Cousin Sal. And we are here to bring you our 7 against the spread college football contest picks. Harry, welcome back, my man. How is your week going so far?
Good, Pam. Good. I had a nice week last week. Had a lot of winners, put a couple parlays together, some straight bets, had some nice selection. So it was good, profitable. My most profitable week of the season so far.
That's really good. We did well as a team. We didn't lose, which is good. We went 4-3 last week. We are 11-10 through 3 weeks, but that's because our first week was kind of a slump. We went 4-3 back-to-back weeks. This is the week. I can feel it. We're starting to get a groove. We're starting to get in sync. I like the picks that you sent me this week. I shared some of the same ones that you liked. So just a reminder of what it is that we are doing. We are in a college football / NFL contest, and we are picking 7 against the spread picks. But because we both like college so much, and there's 2 of us, Harry is giving me his top 3 picks. I'm sharing with him my top 3 picks, and together we're deciding our 7th. This week, we're a little bit more in sync, just like last week. So let's take a look at your first 3 bets that you liked. The first one you like is Ole Miss plus 14.5 against Alabama. I definitely agree with this one. My one worry is that I liked them last year as 3-point underdogs, 3 touchdown underdogs, and now they're just 2. The spread is getting thinner and thinner. But what has you liking Ole Miss this week against Alabama?
Well, I will tell you, Pam, that I wish sometimes that we had some totals on that we can make on these picks, because I love the over in this game. I know it's 79.5, but don't be afraid, people out there. If you obviously I'm going to give out Ole Miss, who I like too, but I definitely love the over here as well. But I like the Rebels here. Matt Corral, we're going to see a lot of him. He is now the Heisman Trophy odds-on favorite. He's been a tremendous quarterback so far this season. He had a very good game against Alabama last year. He's got 7 touchdowns in one game this year against Tulane. Mississippi's averaging 53 points a game. Lane Kiffin's got this team rolling. Corral, like I said, 400 total yards of offense last year against Alabama. They were dominating that game for most. Alabama came on strong in the second half, but they were great in that game. And I think Lane Kiffin plays this one close against his old coach, Nick Saban. And I think, it's basically a Heisman, Matt Corral, who's the Heisman favorite, against who's right behind him, Bryce Young, the quarterback for Alabama. But I don't like what I've seen defensively out of Alabama so far.
Exactly.
Richardson didn't play for Florida, didn't play against Alabama, the best running back, and they still ran for 250 yards on Alabama. Yep. So I think Ole Miss keeps this close, and you're getting the hook over with the 14 points. I think it's a steal.
You've shared some of the reasons as to why you like them that I correlate with. And it's part of that reason why I like Ole Miss this week is because exactly what you said about Florida. They still able to they ran all the yards on this Alabama supposed defense. This is not the same Alabama defense that we are used to seeing in years past. They actually haven't been in the last couple of years. They've shifted more to like an offensive team rather than a defensive team. And Florida, they gave away the playbook on how to contend with this Alabama team. You run the ball, you control the clock, and you don't turn the ball over. The reason why Alabama came out with that win was because Florida threw an interception in their first drive of the game. And what did they do? They ran the ball the rest of the way. But what I like about Ole Miss from last year compared to this year, you're thinking that it's going to be a higher scoring game. I'm actually leaning to the under on this because I believe that there is a shift in this Ole Miss offense. Last year, they were like pass. This year, they still are, but they're more balanced on that offense with their run game. Last year, they were a top 30 rushing offense. This year, right through, it's only 3 games, so it could definitely shift. They are now 6th best in rushing offense. And they had, Matt Corral also, what he has changed also is he's become a bit more of a runner. He had 500 rushing yards of offense last year, but that was throughout the entire season. Well, now he has nearly 200 yards through 3 games, and he has 5 rushing scores in 3 games compared to the 4 he had last year. So I think they're going to use Matt Corral more on the ground. They're going to run the ball more. Hopefully, that would be my game plan for them. Run the ball, keep the ball out of Bryce Young's hands. And I believe that they can really come out with the 14.5, not just to cover the spread, but come out with the outright upset. I know I'm not great at double digits. I've been kind of struggling with them all season long, but if there was one double digit that I love to come out with the outright win, if Lane Kiffin keeps the ball on the ground, I think they can do it. If you get in a pissing contest, that is not how you beat this Alabama defense.
No, you're right. But boy, Corral, I love the kid. I love what I've seen out of this guy, and I think he's gonna throw the ball. I agree with about the running game. I definitely love it, but he's gonna pass too. He's not gonna be shy to do so.
Right. So we both agree on that. That is automatically in our card. Ole Miss plus 14.5 at Alabama. The second game that you like that you sent me that I also agree with is Boston College plus 15.5 at Clemson. I know why I love them, but why do you love them?
First, before we even get to why I love it, I got a question for you, Pam. Who's the best team in the ACC? Is it
not Clemson?
Is it? I mean, is it Boston College? Is it Wake Forest? I mean, I don't know. It's not.
It's wide open.
It's wide open. So that's why I'm taking Boston College with points here. BC's 4-0. They might be the best team in the ACC. They beat it. Now, they did beat Missouri, who's not a great SEC school, but they did beat an SEC school last week. And last year, by the way, this year, they've almost got 1,000 yards rushing on the ground, BC. They're a good running team. And last year, if you remember, when Clemson was number 1, and Lawrence wasn't playing and DJU had to fill in, he saved Clemson because Boston College was winning that game by 8 last year in Death Valley. So Boston College can hang with Clemson. And honestly, I know this seems like when I did Against All Odds this week with Cousin Sal likes Clemson. And I can understand it because of the line. It looks fishy. It looks like too many points. But I'm not falling for it. I'm going to take BC because Clemson looks unbelievably terrible on offense.
Exactly.
I can't take Clemson laying 14.5, 15.5, like you said. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to fall for it. I'm taking BC. I love the running game, and I think they're pretty good.
How can you be a 15-point favorite if you can't score 15 points on offense?
I know. That's what I said to him.
How do you do that? How do you do it? I don't understand. Yes, as you mentioned, Boston College is a great rushing offense, and Clemson has played a rushing offense team in Georgia Tech, and they won that game 14-8. And Georgia Tech, they could have come out with that win, but they were held to 2.5 yards per carry on 38 attempts. Georgia Tech had a fumble that led to 7 points early. Otherwise, they could have been in contention to upset Clemson as double-digit underdogs. Now, Georgia Tech, they are coming off. They're doing pretty well. So it's not like a complete scrub of a team to say, oh, they're not really good. They came off a team against UNC. They kept it close to Clemson. And if you look at the Clemson offense, they haven't scored more than 21 points in 3 games. They're 126 in total offense. They're 106 in red zone attempts. Boston College is 13th in red zone scores. Clemson is 118th. Boston College is 26 in offensive touchdowns. Clemson is 103rd. They don't put up touchdowns. And like you mentioned, last year, it was 34-28 as 24-point favorites. Yes, it was a different quarterback, but the situation is the same. Ground and pound on the game. You're going to keep this ball out of the offense of Clemson. Clemson's defense, though, that is my worry. Clemson's defense is looking pretty good. It is the strength of this team. So if Boston College can limit turnovers and keep Clemson to continuing having struggles on offense, then that is how then they can cover this spread.
Yeah. I mean, until I see some offense out of Clemson, I can't have them.
And third game that you like, that's already locked in then. So we have 2 games, Ole Miss plus 14.5 in Alabama, Boston College plus 15.5 at Clemson. The third game that you said you loved, I'm opposite on, and it's my best bet of the week. So we're either going to sway each other the opposite direction, or we're just going to leave it off. And that you had Cincinnati minus 1.5 at Notre Dame. I have Notre Dame coming out with the outright win. So give me your case, Harry. Why do you like Cincinnati this week?
I'm calling it right now, Pam. I'm calling right now. Luke Fickell's team is the best team in the state of Ohio. That goes for all Buckeyes fans out there. I think Cincinnati's the best team in the state of Ohio. I love what they've done this year. I love what he's done with this program overall. I think this is a situation where it's tough going into South Bend and getting a win, especially giving points to Notre Dame. But I think last week watching that Wisconsin Notre Dame. Now, listen, I was on Notre Dame last week, and you know that. That was one of my winners that I gave out. But watching that game was odd because all of a sudden the momentum had switched to Wisconsin. Mertz finally got a touchdown pass, and Notre Dame, Cone was out. It didn't look good. They returned the kickoff for the touchdown, and then everything just switched. Everything went Notre Dame's way. But in this spot here, I think the luck runs out for the Irish and Brian Kelly because they're very fortunate to be 4-0. They pulled a lot again. Now, they did get a couple touchdowns, defensive touchdowns late last game. So the score wasn't that much of a blowout. Really wasn't that. It was closer than that. But still, I just think Cincinnati, I like what they did 2 weeks ago, too, in the second half against Indiana. They were a little lethargic in the first half. They let Indiana hang around. And then they put the pedal to the metal in the second half, and they blew out Indiana. And I think this is what's going to happen. I think they've got Notre Dame still not rushing the ball great for a great percentage. I just think Cincinnati overall is a more dominant team.
I'm opposite. As I mentioned, I have everything you said is the exact what I believe for Notre Dame. So with huge difference, you're thinking that Cincinnati is the best team. They are not the same team this year that they were last year. Last year, they're at a top 10 pass rush. That defense was stout. You couldn't do shit against this team. This is not the same defensive team as 2020. And why? Because Marcus Freeman, who is the defensive coordinator for Cincinnati, he left Cincinnati and now he's with Notre Dame. And you're talking about Notre Dame. They looked really good on defense. That luck's going to run out on that they had in Wisconsin. How they've played defensively against Wisconsin, they've been playing defensively every single game this season. Cincinnati last year was the 10th best pass rush with 30 quarterback sacks on the year. In 3 games, they're 99th in quarterback pressure, and they have generated just 4 total sacks. Cincinnati defense was ranked 17th against the pass this year, but look at the teams that they have faced. It's a much less competition compared to 2020 when we saw them stopping every potent passing offense. Right now, they have faced 99th passing team, Miami, Ohio, and 53rd ranked Indiana. Last year, they had UCF, they had SMU, and they're going to get to those games, but they haven't gotten to those games yet. And the Fighting Irish, they are winning their games because of that defense, and that's definitely going to come into play in this one. Cincinnati right now, what happened against UCF last year? They could not cover the spread, and I remember this because I had them to cover the spread as, 4-point favorites on the road at UCF. They have a big problem with giveaways. Last year, it came in and bite them in the ass. They still won, but they didn't cover. Cincinnati right now, it's falling over into 2021 season. They're 124th in giveaways. They've had 3 interceptions, 4 fumbles. There's only 130 teams in the FBS, and they're 124th in giveaways. Well, Notre Dame is top 5 in takeaways, and it's not just Wisconsin. They have done it in each of their games. This defense has faced a tougher slate of opponents, and this defense has generated 14 total sacks, 9 interceptions, 2 interception touchdowns, and 2 forced fumbles. It is because of Marcus Freeman. Notre Dame has a better pass rush. They have the better defense. This is not the same Cincinnati team last year, and Notre Dame is about to show them who's the boss.
Well, I just do want. I know it's all good stats there, Pam, but I do want you to remember that in opening week that they had to go to overtime to beat Florida State. Just reminding me about that.
You gotta warm up. First game of the season for everybody.
Yeah. Okay. Just reminding you. That's all.
This is not going to be a game that we sway each other on, so we're going to leave it off the card. So we have backups. We have plenty of backups. The 2 games that are on the card for sure: Ole Miss plus 14.5, Boston College plus 15.5. The games that I like, then if we're not going to use Cincinnati, we're not going to use Notre Dame. The 3 games that I like, which also you liked, so this also definitely helps: Syracuse plus 5 at Florida State. Tell me why you like them this week.
Yeah, I love. I know Syracuse pulled off the upset last week against Liberty. I like them this week too. They're 3-1. Their only loss, they held Rutgers, who's got a pretty good offense, just 17 points. And the running back, freshman Sean Tucker's been fantastic. He's second in the nation in rushing yards, getting 6.5 yards a carry. He's got 7 rushing touchdowns, 8 total touchdowns, and he's got 700 yards of total offense. He's been fantastic. And Syracuse's defense, I can't believe I'm saying this because I'm a Syracuse fan. They're my team. I can't believe I'm saying this. They are tied for first in the country in sacks. Amazing.
I
know. And again, I'm just going to throw out there that Florida State shouldn't be favored really against anybody. They lost to Jacksonville State at home, and
who is a good FCS team.
They are. But also last week they played Louisville. I talked you out of that one. And Florida State made a little bit of a comeback, but didn't cover there either. I'm taking Syracuse plus the 5. I think it's way too many points here.
You were talking about, in week 1 for Notre Dame, they had to struggle. Well, so did Syracuse. They actually lost 17-7 to Rutgers. But if you look at the details of what happened in that game, they had 2 lost fumbles, and 1 interception. And Syracuse is top 20 in giveaways, which means they don't turn the ball often. So that game could have just been a sloppy opening game of the season. And you're talking about their defense. I looked at this game and I was like, wait, Syracuse defense is good. Yes,
pretty good this year. Look at the stats; they're pretty good.
They really are. They really are. They held Rutgers to 1.2 yards per carry, who's a run-only team. They held Liberty to 3.7, which sounds good, but that's below their season average so far, which is always a good thing. And then Florida State, they're terrible offensive line. They cannot defend anything. They're 124th in quarterback protection. And Syracuse, as I mentioned, has one hell of a pass rush. They're top 20 in quarterback pressure. They've generated 18 total sacks. And Florida State has been sacked 14 times between 2 quarterbacks. And what has that yielded? 6 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, dead last in giveaways. So if you give me a team who is ranked 130 out of 130 teams, who's likely to give the ball over versus a team who has a one hell of a pass rush, why are they the underdog?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it doesn't make any sense. And again, they just shouldn't be favored about it to get against anybody. It just doesn't make any. And again, Syracuse's defense is playing well, and they are 3-1, and they didn't get blown out by Rutgers either. It was a 17-7. They played great defense.
Exactly. So those are the 3 games that we have. That's our third.
We're good.
We both agree. Another one that is going to make the card because it's one of my top 3 is Kansas State at home against Oklahoma. What do you think about this game?
Well, I think Skylar Thompson for Kansas State is out for the game.
Yes, he's been out. I'm not worried about that.
I mean, I'm not. I don't know. We've talked a couple weeks ago about Deuce Vaughn. He's been very good running the ball for Kansas State. I'm not a fan of Oklahoma either. I mean, look, we had them last week against West Virginia. I mean, where is the offense? Spencer Rattler hasn't been fantastic. His numbers aren't that good. But where is that Oklahoma offense? This is 2 weeks in a row. I mean, they didn't do anything against West Virginia. They didn't do anything really not much against Nebraska the week before. I don't know. I just, this is almost like a stay away for me because it's just, the question to me is it just a matter of time until this Oklahoma offense explodes, or what's the deal with them? I can't understand it. Maybe the whole Big 12 is bad. I don't know.
That could very well be the case.
But 10.5 seems like a nice chunk, but to me, it's a stay away just because when is this Oklahoma offense really going to explode? I don't know.
Except for Texas, hook 'em horns.
Yeah.
Everyone is bad except Texas. But okay, so here's my reasoning for liking Kansas State.
Down on Sarkeesian.
Here's my reason for liking K-State. I actually took Kansas State on the first game that Skylar Thompson was out, because if you give me a quarterback that is out from injury and you're not a passing team, then I don't really care. He had 1 touchdown on the season. He really didn't do anything for this offense. Why? Because they are a run first team and they have stout running back unit. So now Oklahoma, you're talking about that offense. Well, they're, like you mentioned, where's the offense? They're having trouble. Kansas State is giving up yardage, but they are not giving up points. They're 106 in passing defense, which sounds terrible against a potentially potent Oklahoma offense, but they are top 30 in opponent red zone scores and 20th in opponent offensive touchdowns. So they're not letting their opponents get downfield. They're letting their opponents get downfield, but they're not letting them put up touchdowns. They're limiting them to field goals or worse. And that's yielded them, the defense, to 18 points per game for their opponents. Now, Oklahoma, on the opposite end, they're having trouble scoring. They are getting the yardage. They're making it downfield, but they're not able to put up touchdowns. They are 42nd in passing yards, which last year they were top 10, first off, and they're averaging only 26 points per game. They're 22nd in red zone attempts, which means they're getting all the tries, but they are 79th in offensive touchdowns, which means they are not converting those drives into scores. And if they are, they're field goals, not 7. They've had 4 touchdowns in the last 2 games combined. And Kansas State, they do have a rushing offense. 2 out of the 3 teams. And if you look at the OU defense, I'm not convinced that this is a top 20 rushing defense. 2 out of the 3 FBS games that they have played, the teams are ranked 99th and 107th in rushing offense. Well, now you get K-State, who's a little bit more stout, has more playmaking abilities. I like K-State. And if you remember, Harry, I'm sure you do because you follow the Big 12 just like I do, OU versus K-State in the last 4 years. They won by 7 as 14-point favorites. In
And
2018, they did win and cover by 24 as 24-point favorites. But in the last two back-to-back, they lost by 7 as 23-point favorites, and they lost by 3 as 27-point favorites just last year. Then keep in mind that this is Oklahoma's first road game after playing 4 straight at home. That's
you make great points there, Pam. I'm just let's put that one on the back burner for right now. Let's see what else we got.
This is my top 3 though, so it has to go into.
That is okay. That is your top 3. Okay. Then we're in with K-State.
We can talk about it. We'll see what other stuff we can come up with. I like everything that I've chose, so I'm not opposed to swapping it for something else. So another option then that I have for myself of my top 3 is Michigan at Wisconsin -1, which in the contest it is -1.5. I like Wisconsin here. I think why Wisconsin struggled against Notre Dame was because Notre Dame is a passing team with a good takeaway defense. That's not at all what Michigan is. They're a run first team and they don't really have a defense. They've had Michigan. What I need Wisconsin to do though is to run the freaking ball. I don't know why they're a run first team who decided to pass against Notre Dame. They threw 4 interceptions. Mertz is terrible. Notre Dame scored 24 points from that on that defense. Wisconsin, they need to get back to what they do, and that's ground and pound and run the ball. Wisconsin is second worst in giveaways. 7 of the 9 though have been from interceptions. You're a run only team. Why are you throwing interceptions? But if they do decide to pass, fortunately, Michigan, they are not a good takeaway team. They've had just 1 interception through 40 games. Yeah. So I'm not worried about that at all. And then if you look at Wisconsin, they've played better teams. They played Penn State and Notre Dame, and Michigan has played 2 MAC teams, Rutgers, and 2 MAC games plus Rutgers, which may be decently good, and Washington, who was coming off a season opening loss to an FCS school. So I'm not convinced of this Michigan team at all. If Wisconsin gets back to the ground and pound, they should come to not only win by 1, of course, but I think they should win by like at least 2 touchdowns.
Well, that's basically why last week I had Rutgers over Michigan, because I just, Michigan had played a bunch of nobodies, and Washington looks awful. They have no offense. And who made with Michigan good all of a sudden? You know what I'm saying? Like, who declared them to be really good? I mean, their games were cupcakes. They did look good on offense, but against bad teams. And I think they were very fortunate last week too. Michigan against Rutgers. Rutgers in the second half missed a 28-yard field goal. They had 2 4th and 3s from inside the Michigan 40 that they didn't convert on. They could have won that game, Rutgers, very easily. Lost by 7 as a 3-touchdown underdog. Michigan, I think, walking into a buzzsaw here with Wisconsin because Wisconsin controlled that Notre Dame game, and they had the momentum into the third quarter, and then all of a sudden that kick return just turned everything around. It was pretty amazing to see. Right. I think Wisconsin played tough against Penn State, who's number 4 in the country. Lost at home, but a close game, defensive struggle. Yeah, I think you're right. Wisconsin's got to pound the ball, run it strongly. And I think they get the cover here. I think they get the win. I sort of like Wisconsin here, just coming off what that we saw last week. And what I saw from Michigan, I'm not impressed. So I do like Wisconsin a little here.
All right, so that's 4 games that we have. Some other options. You said you like Rutgers. I'm telling you right now, that is not making the card. And the reason why I don't like Ohio State, but I think this is a good position for Ohio State to kind of have a bounce back week. And it's because, Rutgers, they have a good rushing defense, but Ohio State is still very capable of passing the ball downfield. And I know that OSU hasn't have significant wins. They played Minnesota, who lost to Bowling Green, and then they played Akron. But my concern is that Rutgers is 112th in total offense. Can this Rutgers defense hold a top 10 passing team for 4 full quarters? The 3 FBS schools that they have played, 3 teams are ranked 93rd or worse in passing offense. Ohio State is a top 10. This is a different beast. They can easily put up a touchdown way downfield with one big passing play. Rutgers doesn't have that ability.
Well, I just think that I think Brian Day's team, the Buckeyes, are always going to be overrated for the most part. Playing freshman.
I fully agree.
Kyle McCord wasn't very impressive last week. 2 touchdowns, 1 pick against Akron. Again, Rutgers covered easy against Michigan. The quarterback, Noah Vidrell, he's got 0 picks this season. They've got a 3-1 record. Like I said, they really should have beat Michigan, or at least sent that game to overtime. I don't know. I like the 14.5 here. It's just we don't have to have it. I don't take it again. A lot of times betting against Ohio State is a little risky, especially since Rutgers had to go Michigan and Ohio State here. But I kind of like them getting 14.5 at home. I think Ohio State isn't as what they're usually and what they usually are this year. I just don't see it that much. I mean, they struggled against Michigan defensively. I mean, Minnesota defensively, like you mentioned. And if Ibrahim doesn't go down in that game for Minnesota, maybe that was a different game too. But still, but I'm saying out there, I do.
But like I said, that's Rutgers with a good rushing. Yeah, it's Rutgers with a good rushing defense. Now you're going up against a passing team. It doesn't quite correlate. So for that reason alone, and because you are ranked bottom 15 in total offense, I need going up against a top 10 passing. I can't do it. I cannot do it. So we're gonna pass. You didn't like K-State. We're gonna pass on that. I don't like Rutgers. We're gonna pass on that. Okay. Northwestern plus 12.5 in Nebraska. I can't do that one either because Nebraska is a team that I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's a tough spot for them though because they're coming off 2 straight losses on the road at Norman by 7 and in East Lansing to the Spartans by 3 in overtime. They're 0-2 in the conference. Scott Frost is in a lot of trouble, and I like Northwestern's running game. They ran for 373 yards as a team last week. Evan Hall, their main running back, had 216, 2 touchdowns. I just personally think that even though Northwestern has to play this game on the road, and they're in Lincoln, and finally Nebraska's back home, I think these 2 tough losses weigh on them, and I think they may get the win here. Northwestern hasn't been tremendous this year. They lost to Michigan State by 17 points. But I think getting the 12.5 is worth a look at least. I
couldn't do it because Nebraska is a pretty good rushing offense and Northwestern has a bottom 10 rushing defense. They're giving up all the yards, and offensively, Nebraska is not only the better offense, they are the better defense. And as you mentioned, they're coming back home. And they kept Oklahoma to minimal yardage, minimal touchdown scores. They kept Spencer Rattler to 1 touchdown pass. That's really freaking good. So I think Nebraska defense is being a little bit underrated here. And Northwestern, I don't believe, has the offense to contend. And if you are a run first team, Northwestern, and you're going up against a defense who's really good at defending the run, well, then what happens? How do you make up some of those scores? So I'm going to pass on this one. I can't do it. So that gives us 4 games. That gives us 4 games.
We're gonna get to 7.
How do we get to 7? Some of the options that we have are Minnesota at Purdue minus 2.5. Tell me if you like any of these. Purdue minus 2.5 at home against Minnesota. Georgia Tech plus 3 at home against Pitt. Wake Forest minus 7 at home against Louisville. East Carolina plus 3.5 at home against Tulane. Or we can stick in K-State. That was that was part of my top 3, so that would give us 5, and then your backup, so Syracuse, which is already in there.
Yeah. Well, look, Purdue. I don't mind that pick. They're 3-1. They're giving up just 14 points a game so far through their 4 games. And if you remember, Pam, I don't know if you do, but last year they lost that game to Minnesota, 34-31, where there was the worst pass interference call I've ever seen in my life called late in that game that screwed Purdue and gave the win to Minnesota. So for that alone, I think they get payback here. And I can see Purdue only got to win by a field goal. It's pretty good.
And look at Minnesota. They lost to Bowling Green, and they have 1 running back who is Trayson Potts. And he's pretty good, but Purdue's rushing defense, they are also pretty good. They held Oregon State, who is 19th in total rushing yards, to just 78 yards and 3 yards per carry. If they do need a pass, Tanner Morgan, he has not been the same Tanner Morgan that we have seen in the past. He's 120th in passing yards. He has just 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 56% completion. And for your reason that you said, the narrative, I like Purdue at home. You want to stick that in?
Tanner Morgan, to be honest, was awful last year. And then 2 years ago, he had 30 touchdown passes. So I don't know what's happened to his confidence, but it's just not finding the receivers. It hasn't been that. And he's had solid receivers too. He's had guys that made that have gone to the pros. He had Bateman, Rashad Bateman last year. And I don't know what this deal is, but I just don't know about and Minnesota. Like I mentioned, losing Abraham, like I was a stud last year. It's a big hit for them. So I think Purdue maybe gets the win here.
So we have Ole Miss, Boston College, Syracuse, Wisconsin, and then Purdue. That gives us 5. What about Georgia?
About your other two, your Georgia Tech and your East Carolina. I gotta say, like last week, I did hit a 3-team underdog money line parlay, and one of the teams that I had on there was the team that I needed to finish it out was Georgia Tech against North Carolina. And Pam, I said this to the guys on Against All Odds. I watched that game entirely. I can't recall seeing such a great defensive effort from a team in college football against a team that was supposed to roll them. And Sam Howell, 68 touchdowns in his first 2 seasons. He got sacked 8 times last game. Last game by Georgia Tech, they were amazing. Jeff Sims, the quarterback who filled in, was fantastic. 4 total touchdowns, 128 yards rushing, 112 passing. And I just couldn't believe what I saw, how Georgia Tech dominated that game. With that said, they're playing Pittsburgh here, and they're getting more than a field goal. They're getting a 3.5. The only thing that I'm worried about, because Kenny Pickett's a decent quarterback for Pitt. I'm not going to – he's put up some decent numbers over the years. Seems like he's been there forever. But the reason why I'm a little hesitant about taking Georgia Tech here is how awesome they were last week. And sometimes we've seen this. The letdown spot. And so – but still, very impressed by Georgia Tech. But – your East Carolina pick too. I'm leaning a little bit towards them as well. Playing Tulane. East Carolina, last 2 games, offense is coming around. 73 points they've scored in the last 2 weeks, and they won both games. Tulane versus D1 teams this year are giving up an average of 43 points per game.
Oh yeah.
So and they lost last year to Tulane. So I think quarterback Holton Ahlers wants to return the favor here. He's been okay this year for East Carolina, for the Pirates too. So getting 4 here seems interesting too. I actually like East Carolina just because of the letdown factor for Georgia Tech. I like East Carolina a little bit more because they did lose to Tulane last year, and they want to maybe get that one back.
All right, I'll quickly tell you why I like Georgia Tech and East Carolina. Georgia Tech, and it's pretty because of turnovers. Both of them are pretty similar. Pittsburgh, they have a fumble problem. They're 93rd in fumble giveaways. Well, Georgia Tech is 34th in takeaways. They have recovered 6 fumbles. So if this is a low spread game, Georgia Tech is really good at takeaways. Pitt, really good at giveaways. So that could come into play. And then if I am talking about, what was the other game? East Carolina. Let me see. Also because of giveaways. Tulane is 4th worst in giveaways. They have thrown 4 interceptions, 8 fumbles, and East Carolina is 9th best in takeaways with 5 interceptions, 4 forced fumbles. And one of those came into play last week when they were underdogs, 10-point underdogs to Marshall. They fetched. What's the correct word? The defense had a interception touchdown for them to get the outright win as an 10-point underdog. So it's all about turnovers for these 2 teams. They're both at home playing against teams who like to give it away. So which one of the 2 then would you like more? East Carolina?
You know what? I kind of like Georgia Tech more, but again, I
want to stick both in?
I just the letdown spot. I mean, they were amazing last week. I mean, I think we go East Carolina here. We'll go East Carolina. Like I said, the offense is picking it up, and I think they're just they're playing a little bit better here, 1-2 in a row. I like East Carolina here.
All right, then let me try to persuade you one last time on K-State. Because let's look at this. K-State 6-2 against the spread as a home underdog under head coach Chris Kleeman, including 5 outright wins. They won 5 of the 8 outright as underdogs. Oklahoma 5-9-1 against the spread as an away favorite under head coach Lincoln Riley. And then of course we know that in back-to-back years, OU has lost outright as nearly 3 touchdown favorites or more to K-State.
All right, let's see here. Okay, so what do we got? We got, by the way, what's the leader have? What does the leader have? How many wins?
I have no idea. I don't even look at that stuff.
Oh yeah. Okay.
We're 4-3. We need to get 7-0 first before we start thinking about leaderboard.
Okay, so let's see. Mississippi.
Ole Miss plus 14.5. Boston College plus 15.5. Syracuse plus 5. Wisconsin -1. Purdue -2.5. East Carolina plus 3.5. So we're trying to find our 7th.
Oh, okay. So we're between. So it's between Georgia Tech and Kansas State, correct?
Maybe Wake Forest at home.
Oh, boy, they got their defense is pretty good, and their offense has been electric. It really has. They scored 35 to 42 points in all their games. They haven't given up more than 20.
Louisville should have actually probably lost to. I know we're talking about Florida State and how bad they are, but they had a missed. Florida State in that game had a missed field goal and an interception, and actually outgained Louisville. So there's the potential there for them to pull the upset as an underdog. It's Florida State, and they screw up as they always do.
Look, let's take your Kansas State.
Okay.
We'll take your Kansas State. But if Rutgers covers again, you're getting it.
I'm giving you the 7th.
Rutgers covers again.
I'm giving you the 7th pick next week if that happens. Then that is our 7 picks. We have Syracuse +5. Oh, we'll start over. We have Ole Miss +14.5 at Alabama, Boston College +15.5 at Clemson, Syracuse +5 at Florida State, OU at K-State. We're taking the underdog, K-State +10.5, and then Wisconsin -1 at home to Michigan, Purdue -2.5 at home versus Minnesota, and East Carolina +3.5 at home versus Tulane. Those are our 7 against the spread picks for college football. Do make sure to check out Harry's work on bestbetcorner.com and extrapoints.com and on the Against All Odds podcast with Cousin Sal. You can follow him on Twitter at AAOHarry. You can follow me at Pamela M35. Harry, thanks for joining me again this week. This was a little bit more difficult because we didn't see eye to eye, but I cannot wait for us to do it again next week.
Oh, I love it. Thanks, Pam. Awesome. Always.
And that does it for another episode of Stats with Stats.